All right, so I am here to talk about the basics of retargeting. What is retargeting? Some real high-level things about it. I have to admit, right up front, I'm actually not the biggest fan of retargeting in the world. I'm a search guy at heart, so I think you'll definitely see a few points in here where I point out a few things about retargeting that can make it a little bit challenging sometimes, but it is definitely a viable strategy that a lot of my clients do actually use. So a little bit of background on me. I've been in the interactive space for 12, 13 years now. I've done pretty much every type of marketing you can imagine: online, lead gen, SEO, PPC, affiliate, email, anything that I'm forgetting. Today I work full-time at a company called Project Cap, which is in the insurance space. You can imagine how intense that is, trying to do SEO for an insurance company that is not spending $1 billion a year in advertising. And then I also have my own firm called Action Interactive, which has just started in the last few months as an agency. So that's my background. Jumping right into what retargeting is. So went for the definition from Wikipedia, because that's always right. But basically, retargeting is a form of online advertising by which ads are targeted to users based on their previous actions in situations where these actions did not result in a sale or conversion. That last part is an ideal scenario. I think you'll definitely find a lot of people doing retargeting right now where that's not the case, so that's something that will come back up throughout as well. So different types of retargeting. From a high level, kind of breaks down into on-site versus off-site. So you can retarget somebody based on something that they have actually done on your site, or you can do it based on stuff that they've done on other sites like Google or pretty much any site, actually. So there's, depending on how you want to look at it, there's 6 or 7 or 8 kind of types of search market, or retargeting. The 6 types, so this is a Search Engine Watch article that I found today that kind of breaks it down into these 6. So search, they actually have listed first. I don't think search was the first one. I think site retargeting was probably the first one to really make it big. But search, site, SEM, and SEO, so that is retargeting to somebody who came to your site through a search channel, so you have the information about what keywords drove them to your site. Email, retargeting people based on whether or not they've opened your email or clicked through on your email. Contextual, which is kind of the one that a lot of people like to hear about and think is pretty cool, is basically retargeting somebody based on other sites that they have been to that may be related to your site. Not the easiest thing in the world to pull off all the time, because obviously you don't have access to a lot of other sites usually. But through some of the advertising networks, you can actually get onto other categories that may be similar. So if you are a hotel site, you can do some retargeting based on people who have been to airline sites, things like that indicate that somebody is going to be traveling, and then do some geo-targeting and some things like that. And then engagement is the last one. So the 7. So Chango, I'm not exactly sure how they pronounce that. That is a retargeting company. They put out this really cool infographic. I seem to remember seeing this quite a bit lately, so I think it got shared quite a bit when they did bring it out. They basically have the exact same 6 different ones, and then they add social to the mix as well. And then if you really look at this close, I could break this down into 8, because search, which is at the top, they break that down into search on the web, so Google versus search on your site. Those seem like pretty distinct things to me, so I wouldn't necessarily lump those 2 in as one. Kind of cool thing, the orange bar on the outside indicates the strength of intent. So you can see right there, doing search retargeting kind of is usually going to be the strongest, because that's, again, sometimes a situation where somebody has indicated an interest in your product, but they haven't necessarily made it to your site yet. So, same 6 plus social. So, some of the benefits of retargeting. The big one is you're getting back in front of people who know about your brand. So they've been to your site, they left, you have a way to show them banners to try and get them back to your site. Or In the case of search and some of the off-site, you have the potential to get in front of people who have indicated through some action that they are interested in what you have to offer, but they haven't yet found you. Typically, you're going to have a lower CPM with retargeting than you are traditional banner campaigns, so cost per thousand ad impressions, and typically you're going to get a higher click-through rate than traditional banner campaigns. All good things. So drawbacks, there are some. Notice I was not comparing the statistics for click-through rate and cost per thousand to search marketing. So here's where the SEO in me comes out. Search is still a better channel for ROI, at least in my opinion. If I've got limited budgets and a client says, should we do search or should we do retargeting, I'm going to go search every single time. Hard, cold reality. A lot of people leave your site for a reason. They don't want what you have to offer. They don't like you as a company. They don't think you're trustworthy. So getting them, showing them ads is never going to get them back to the site, never going to make them convert once they get there. So it can get creepy. We've probably all been in that situation where you leave a site and like 2 sites later you're seeing ads for the site you were just on, and it's nonstop. It's, I'm seeing 30, 40, 50 ads a day for this site, and it's like the next several months that this goes on. That's when somebody's doing retargeting wrong, obviously, and there can be some difficulties in tracking it and justifying it. I'll get into that a little bit later. So the basics of setting up a campaign. First, you're going to choose your retargeting method. We just talked about what some of those methods are. Define content that you want to include people based on and exclude based on. Choose the duration of retargeting. Choose your frequency. Design some creative. Determine what the landing page is. Launch it. And then profit, hopefully. Not every time, and some of that gets into the tracking issues that we'll talk about. So each one of those, breaking them down a little bit further. So when we talk about what kind of content you want to be including, do you want to do all content? Do you want to do specific content or specific segments of your site? So you may have different product categories that you want to set up different campaigns for, things like that. You may want to do retargeting just based on your shopping cart. So people who have put something into the shopping cart and then not completed the action, show them a different type of ad, try and get them to come back and convert. Homepage versus internal pages. If somebody just visits your homepage and bails, they're not that engaged, you might either not want to retarget to those people, or you may use a different message to those people. Exclusion. So these are people we want to actively not target, usually. Lead confirmation or an order confirmation page. They've already done what you want them to on your site. Most of the time, you're not going to go back and try and get in front of them again unless you've got a specific campaign objective for them. And sometimes there's some specific content on the site that you just want to basically block people from seeing their ads once they've seen that. I don't have a great example of that off the top of my head. But it could be that you know there's some pages in your site that if they reach that page, they're not very likely to convert, or they've got something else going on. You may not want to include those people in your campaign buckets. So duration, how long should you retarget somebody for? You may not actually want to do it immediately. Like I said, you've probably all been in the situation where you visit a site and immediately you start to see banners for that. It can be good to let things kind of chill out for half an hour, 45 minutes. A couple days doesn't hurt sometimes. 5 to 7 days, maybe 10, can usually be okay. Usually, you start to get into a few weeks, it starts to be a little bit annoying when you see that company over and over again. And a few months, that's when you get creepy. So I've actually got a prospect right now that I was talking to them in January, and I'm still seeing their ads show up usually a couple times a day. And it's funny because it's something that I'm not all the target market for. So frequency, how often do you want to show somebody an ad? This is another one that it can be different for a lot of different type of industries depending on what you're selling. It might be different B2B versus consumer, might be different within different verticals even within each one of those. But sometimes it's not even determined by you either. If you're doing retargeting based on a cost per acquisition model, or sometimes even on cost per click model, that may be determined by the channel partner that you're working with. you can usually have some influence in that and say, hey, we really don't want to have our ad show up like 5 times on one page, but sometimes you have no say over it. So too much obviously gets really annoying. So that's the example. I've been on sites where, you know, here's an ad for this company, and here's another ad for the same company, and here's another ad for the same company. That really doesn't do a lot of good, plus it's actually burning their impressions a lot more quickly than they should be. Too little can mean a campaign failure at the same time, because, you know, how many ads do you actually notice during the day? So if you're not hitting somebody, you know, 5, 6, 7 times a day, there's a good chance that they're just going to miss all of your ads. So I usually shoot for anywhere from 5 to 20 times a day, depending on budgets and what it is that we're actually trying to sell. So design best practices. Originally we were going to talk a lot about design, and we kind of backed off on that. And part of the reason, aside from the fact that I don't know that much about design, I'm a search guy. So, but big thing to me, it's the same design principles you want to use on a regular banner campaign. Keep it simple, keep it concise. Don't get too wordy, don't use a bunch of exclamation points. Match the creative to target and to the content. So if you have specific buckets set up for specific content on your site, match the creative to that as best you can. Use offers to entice that conversion. That's something a lot of people do, is if somebody left, you'll give them a 10% discount to come back and finish up. And dynamic ads. Not every retargeting company can do this, but this can be really effective. So if somebody came in and looked at 3 products on your site, they can dynamically build an ad to show the person that has those 3 products in the ad, or that last product that they were on. More likely to get a click when somebody sees that exact product that they were looking at. Landing page. Obviously you want to drive a person to the best page that's going to encourage that next action. It might be back to the exact product that they left on, might be onto the next logical product in the conversion process. So if you know that your average customer used 3 white papers before they convert, and they've looked at one, show them an ad, drive them to the second one. If you know they've seen 2, drive them to the third one. We could do landing pages specific to to drive people specifically to the desired action, meaning the same as a paid search landing page, where it's not necessarily a part of the site. It's got some stripped down information, some bullet points, get people in, get them to exactly what you want to do. Choosing retargeting partner. Some of the things to consider, and this is something I've gone through a few times actually in the last 6 months, is sitting down and analyzing some of the potential partners out there and figuring out exactly who's going to do the best fit. So the payment model, cost per 1,000 impressions, or CPM, is kind of the standard, I think. Some companies will go cost per click. There's at least one company out there I know that does cost per acquisition. If you've got enough traffic and a high enough conversion rate, then your average price is high enough. So retargeting types. So a lot of the companies have specific types, whether it's search, whether it's site, whether it's social. The really fun thing is they all like to call it something different so that they're unique. So trying to compare that sometimes is a nightmare. I tried to make a spreadsheet once doing it, and it was ugly. So self-service versus full service. Most of these companies are going to have some level of service where you basically hand over the creative, tell them where to land people. They're going to help you with the setup. There are a couple that are self-service where you can create your own campaign. One of the big ones was AdBreak. They just went out of business, so I think there's some reasons other than the fact that they were a self-service model for that, but I think it was AdBreak that went out of business, wasn't it? Anyone else suffer through using AdBreak? Okay. I just ran a test campaign about a year and a half ago, and clearly it didn't work very well. So the networks that they're on. So this is where they can actually go out and put ads. Google is one place that you can do retargeting through. They have the Google network. That's really all they do. But there's other networks like AppNexus and a whole list of a bunch of them. Obviously, you want to be on more networks than just a single one a lot of times, because that means you're going to have more websites that you can get your ads on, more flexibility, more categories you can advertise in, things like that. Dynamic ad capabilities, not every retargeting company can actually handle the concept of keeping track of where somebody was on your site and then displaying an ad dynamically based on that. Rich media, flash ads, video ads, things like that. Again, not all of the retargeting companies can handle that. And then that strategic planning and support. So are they there to help you when you have questions? Will they just execute everything for you? So I've got one client right now where we're working with a particular partner where I just send stuff over to them and they take care of it for me. Makes my life a lot easier. So who are some of the people that we can go to? There's Google, Share This, which is kind of a social tool. Add This, I can't even keep up with the screen. And the really scary thing is that I probably didn't even really make a dent in this. So there's a lot of options. So Action Interactive is not one of them. So. ExactRap. This is a company I just want to touch on real quick because it's actually a local company. They are a local company. They have full service and they have self-service. They're on all of the big ad networks. I used to do some work with these guys. They're pretty good guys. The self-service model is something new for them. In particular, if you're an agency that does a lot of display or wants to get into display, they might be somebody you want to talk to because they literally have the ability. You can go in and you can do every level of targeting that they offer, which includes retargeting, but also includes category targeting, demographic targeting, geo-targeting, everything like that. So if anybody wants to check these guys out or get in touch with them, just find me afterwards and I'll give you a card and I can set up an email and introduce you to them. So they're not a big company. Like I said, at least most of them are local. I think one of the partners is down in New Mexico or something like that. So difficulty in tracking. 3 for 70 versus 453 for 19,700. 3 for 70 for my client is what Google Analytics told me they got through retargeting. 453 for 19,700, that's what my retargeting partner told me they got. The client was really hoping that they were right and I was wrong. But at the end of the day, the 3 for 70 was a lot closer to what had actually come through from it. The big thing is last click attribution. It may not paint the whole picture. I readily admit that. Again, the search marketer in me doesn't necessarily like to all the time, but 3 for 70 isn't giving them a credit for enough. But 453 is giving them way, way, way too much credit. So you also do have to look at the post-click conversions, which in this case there were 11 post-click conversions, so that means somebody saw an ad, they clicked on it, they didn't convert, but then they did come back to the site and convert later. And then the post-impression conversions, which means they saw an ad, they didn't click on it, they came to the site, and then they bought something. That's where you really kind of have to say, okay, how much did them maybe seeing an ad on the page, how much did that really lead to them making a purchase? So you kind of have to create an attribution model that is going to be fair for both sides. It's going to make sense. So in this client's case, they send us an entire list of all 453 orders. It includes the order number. We can pull our orders out of Google Analytics, figure out which ones came from which channels, how close to the impression that they last saw was the order, and if it was within, I'd have to go back and look exactly what the model is, but I think if it's within 24 hours of their last impression, we're willing to give them a certain amount of credit for that sale. So it's not perfect, obviously, but it's the best we can do right now for that channel. So some easy ways to screw up retargeting. Not excluding some people, and I think we've talked about most of these a little bit, but if you don't exclude people once they've taken that final action, you're going to cause some confusion, you're going to irritate some people. I've got a guy in the office that was telling me he went on a site, he bought something, it was the kind of purchase that you make once in your lifetime, left the site, and immediately started seeing ads trying to get him back to buy it again. Didn't make a lot of sense. Now there are times when you might want to retarget that person, but it's going to be more about cross-selling, upselling, what else, making them feel better about the purchase, training them on how to use it, stuff like that. So targeting for too long, you don't want to bother people, especially after, like we said, after a couple of weeks. Are they really going to click on your ads finally? Are they really going to have that revelation? Too high of a frequency, terrible creative. And then attributing too many or too few conversions. It's either going to make the campaign look like it's driving a huge ROI when it's really not, or it's going to look like such a low ROI that you cancel it and you might be actually missing out on a few sales. So, sneaky but basic retargeting tricks. Run multiple campaigns using different targets. So set up a different target campaign for the homepage versus those internal people, or the people in the cart versus people who haven't yet reached the cart. As long as you're making sure not to have people fall into multiples of those categories, that can work pretty well. Do target customers with upsell or cross-sell opportunities. So if they came onto the site and they bought this product, this is a companion product. After a couple of days, show them an ad and say, hey, don't come out and hit them over the head with it, but say, hey, you got this, now you might need this. So, you can even use unique landing pages to help with that segmentation. So within your shopping cart, build different confirmation pages basically to help drive them into a bucket to say, okay, this product gets this ad, this product gets this ad. And delay those campaigns sometimes. So don't show it to them right away. If they just drop $250 at your store, the last thing you probably want to do is show them an ad 5 minutes later asking them to come back and drop another $250. An interesting one that I've seen a couple times now, drive users to your social channels to sign up for special offers. So drive to your Facebook page, drive them to follow you on Twitter, and then use that to engage with them and give them special offers or just make them know more about the brand. And then retarget off of partner sites. So if your company has multiple sites in your network, set up pixels across those networks and cross-market to people from some of your different sites, assuming that they're actually related. That's kind of like the contextual retargeting that you can do with some of the agencies where you can buy into some different categories of sites that you have no control over. But with this, you can actually get obviously a lot deeper because you can control where those pixels are and where in those sites you want to target people off of. So that's what I've got for the basics. I think we usually do some questions later on as well, but if anybody has any real quick.
Tony, technical question.
Oh. Okay.
You click on an email, how can you really retarget from an email? I understand that technically you have to visit a website with a targeting code on. You can't put targeting code on an email, right? That may have changed.
I suspect you're right. I've never done email retargeting. I know that what I was reading on it did say that, if they click through to it, that you can. Now, I don't know if there is some way that you could track it based on whether or not an image loads or something like that. I doubt it. There's probably some more technical people in the room that need to
The way we
that.
handle it is create a landing page.
Right.
Yep. If they click through,
right.
not just open.
That's the obvious way that yes, you can definitely do that.
Okay.
That would be my guess, is that that's the only real way, but there's got to be some innovative companies trying to do it based on opens and signing up and stuff like that. So you had to find one of them that I don't use to ask me a question. Any other questions? Cool.
Thank you very much, Tony.